The holographic display flickered to life in the cramped briefing room aboard the human vessel Endurance, casting an eerie blue glow across Captain Jake Morrison's weathered face. Before him materialized the most spectacular sporting event in known space, the Galactic Survival Tournament, where the finest warriors from across the galaxy competed in deadly trials that would make even the most hardened soldier's blood run cold. Every cycle, representatives from 400 civilizations gathered to prove their worth. Jake read aloud from the official tournament documentation. Combat trials across death worlds, survival challenges that push beings to their absolute limits, and strategic competitions that separate the truly elite from the merely skilled. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Amy Chun, leaned forward in her chair. The winners gain access to restricted trade routes, advanced technology exchanges, and most importantly, respect from the Galactic Council. It's not just about glory, Captain. It's about survival in this political landscape. Jake nodded grimly. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for barely 5 years, ever since first contact with the Alteran delegation. In that time, they'd struggled to establish themselves among species that had been spacefaring for millennia. Trade agreements were limited, technological sharing was restricted, and humans were consistently treated as the new, untested species that hadn't proven their worth. "So why aren't we participating?" asked Sergeant Tom Blake, the team's demolitions expert. His scarred hands drummed impatiently against the metal table. "We've got warriors who could hold their own against any alien competitor." The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Jake had been wondering the same thing for months. Every official inquiry to the Galactic Council had been met with polite deflection or bureaucratic doublespeak. The standard response was always the same: humanity requires additional evaluation before tournament eligibility can be determined. "I've been digging through the regulations," said Dr. Lisa Park, their intelligence analyst. She was small in stature, but possessed a mind that could dissect complex problems with surgical precision. "There's no mention of any evaluation period for new species. In fact, the Zilani were admitted to the tournament within months of first contact, and the Corvan Empire participated in their debut year." Jake felt a familiar burning sensation in his chest, the same feeling he'd experienced during his years as a Special Forces operator, when bureaucrats had tied his hands with red tape while soldiers died in the field. Something wasn't right about humanity's exclusion, and he intended to find out what. "There's more," Lisa continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I've been monitoring communications from the Tournament Organizing Committee. They're afraid of us, Captain. The few humans who participated in preliminary trials during our evaluation period, She paused, checking her notes. "They performed beyond all expectations. Not just well, they dominated. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Sci-Fi stellar conflict is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you're hungry for HFY battles and tales of human valor against alien might, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring these frontlines to you." The room fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Jake processed this information while staring at the tournament footage: alien warriors with chitinous armor, energy weapons, and technological enhancements that should have given them massive advantages over baseline humans. Yet somehow, his species had been too successful. "They're not evaluating us," Jake said finally, his voice hard as steel. "They're trying to figure out how to keep us out without starting a diplomatic incident." Amy leaned back in her chair. "So what do we do?" "File another formal complaint. Request a hearing with the Galactic Council." Jake's smile was predatory. "We do what humans do best when faced with impossible odds. We adapt, we improvise, and we overcome." He stood, his decision crystallizing like ice in his veins. "We're going to that tournament, invited or not." Tom grinned, the expression transforming his scarred features. "I like where this is heading, Captain." "The next tournament begins in 6 weeks on the world of Kalara Prime," Jake continued. "We'll need new identities, equipment that won't immediately scream human technology, and a plan to get past security screening." Dr. Park was already pulling up star charts and tournament schedules. "The registration period closes in 10 days. If we're going to do this, we need to move fast." Jake looked around the room at his team soldiers who had followed him through impossible missions, scientists who had helped humanity navigate the complex web of galactic politics, and warriors who had never backed down from a challenge. They were about to undertake their most dangerous mission yet, one that could either establish humanity's place in the galaxy or destroy their species' reputation forever. "Are you all in?" he asked. The unanimous response echoed through the ship. "Yes, sir." The intercepted communication files sprawled across Dr. Park's workstation like pieces of a vast, disturbing puzzle. For 3 days, she had been meticulously decoding transmissions between various Galactic Council members, and what she discovered made her blood run cold. "Captain, you need to see this," she called out, her voice tight with barely contained anger. Jake approached her station, followed by the rest of the team. The central display showed a series of test results from humanity's preliminary evaluation. Period results that had never been shared with Earth's representatives. "These are the scores from the 12 humans who participated in the initial trials," Lisa explained, highlighting specific data points. In endurance testing, they outlasted Coven shock troopers by 300%. In tactical problem solving, they consistently outperformed Alterran military strategists. In adaptability assessments, she paused, her voice catching. They achieved perfect scores in scenarios where most alien participants failed completely. Amy studied the data with growing disbelief. "These results are incredible. Why would the Council hide success like this?" "Because they're not just successful," Jake said grimly, pieces falling into place. "They're threatening." Lisa nodded, pulling up another series of files. "This is a classified Council session transcript from immediately after the human trials." Council member Thane of the Valoran Federation stated, and I quote, "If humans are allowed to participate in the tournament, they will dominate within a generation. Their capacity for violence, adaptation, and strategic thinking exceeds anything we've documented in known space." Tom let out a low whistle. "They're scared of us." "Terrified," Lisa corrected. Council member Zara from the Nexus Collective argued that humans represent what she called an evolutionary anomaly. She claimed that our species developed under conditions so harsh that we became natural-born survivors in ways that other species never needed to evolve. Jake felt a surge of pride mixed with frustration. Humanity had clawed its way up from a world that had tried to kill them at every turn: ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators, plagues, and countless other threats that had forged them into something unique in the galaxy. They hadn't chosen to be survivors. Survival had chosen them. "There's more," Lisa continued. "The Council didn't just exclude us from the tournament. They've been actively working to limit human expansion into contested territories, restricting our access to certain trade routes, and even lobbying to prevent other species from sharing advanced technologies with us." The implications hit the team like a physical blow. Every struggle humanity had faced in establishing itself among the stars hadn't been due to their newcomer status. It had been deliberate suppression by species who feared what humans might become. "They're treating us like a threat to be contained," Amy said, her voice sharp with indignation. "Because that's exactly what we are," Jake replied. "Not to peaceful coexistence, but to their established order. They've created a system where they control who rises and who falls, and we don't fit into their neat little hierarchy." Dr. Park pulled up star charts showing tournament locations. The current tournament runs for 8 weeks across 4 different worlds. Kalara Prime is the opening ceremony and first set of challenges, a desert world with extreme temperature variations and hostile wildlife. From there, competitors advance to Frostheim, an ice world where temperatures drop to -60 degrees. The third world is Toxia, a swamp planet with poisonous atmosphere and carnivorous plant life. The final challenges take place on Omega Station, an artificial environment designed to test every skill simultaneously. "How many competitors typically survive to the end?" Tom asked. "Out of roughly 800 initial participants, fewer than 50 make it to the final rounds. The mortality rate is approximately 30% overall." Jake absorbed this information while formulating their approach. "We'll need to split into 2 teams. Primary insertion team consists of myself, Tom, and Amy. Will be the ones actually competing. Lisa, you'll coordinate intelligence and support from a nearby system. What about identities? Amy asked. Human physiology is distinctive enough that we can't just blend in. Lisa had anticipated this question. I've been studying the participant roster. There are several humanoid species that are close enough to human baseline that with minor cosmetic modifications, we could pass initial screening. The Kepler colony refugees, for instance, they've been displaced for so long that their documentation is sparse and their physical characteristics are within our parameters. Equipment? Tom inquired. Standard galactic issue gear only. No human technology that might give us away. We'll have to rely on our natural advantages rather than superior hardware. Jake felt the familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders. This mission would be unlike anything they'd attempted before. They wouldn't just be risking their lives, they'd be risking humanity's future relationship with the entire galaxy. If we're discovered, he said quietly, it could mean war. The Council could declare us a hostile species and unite the galaxy against us. The team exchanged glances. They'd followed Jake through impossible odds before, but this was different. This was about more than completing a mission. It was about proving that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Sir, Amy said, her voice steady as stone, humanity has been fighting for survival since we first looked up at the stars. This is just another battlefield. Tom nodded agreement. Besides, someone needs to show these aliens what real competition looks like. Jake smiled grimly. Then we do this the human way. We don't just compete, we dominate. The transport ship Nebula's Edge dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder that rattled through every bulkhead. Through the viewport, Kalara Prime hung like a malevolent jewel against the star field, a world of crimson deserts, jagged mountain ranges, and swirling dust storms that could strip flesh from bone in minutes. Jake Morrison, now calling himself Kane and bearing the forged credentials of a Kepler colony refugee, felt the familiar pre-mission tension coiling in his muscles. The cosmetic modifications had been subtle but effective, slightly altered facial structure, modified eye color, and skin tone adjusted to match Kepler physiological norms. To casual observation, he appeared to be just another displaced survivor, seeking glory in the tournament. Beside him, Amy now, Arya, and Tom now Thane, completed their final equipment checks. Their gear was standard galactic issue, energy weapons, environmental suits, and survival equipment that paled in comparison to human military technology. They would have to rely on their natural advantages. First challenge briefing in 10 minutes, announced the ship's AI in standard galactic trade language. All participants report to Bay 7 for planetary insertion. The bay was a cacophony of alien voices, chittering, roaring, and sounds that had no human equivalent. Jake surveyed their competition with a tactical eye. The Corvan warriors were massive, standing nearly 8 feet tall with natural armor plating and redundant organ systems. The Alteran team moved with fluid grace, their enhanced reflexes and mathematical minds making them formidable strategic opponents. Dozens of other species filled the bay, each the absolute elite of their civilization. Welcome, warriors, to the Galactic Survival Tournament, boomed the voice of Tournament Director Vex, a towering insectoid creature with compound eyes that seemed to catalog every participant. The first trial will test your ability to survive in hostile environments while completing tactical objectives. You will be deployed across Kalara Prime's scorching wastes with minimal equipment. Your mission: reach the Crimson Citadel and retrieve your species beacon before the 72-hour deadline. The deployment pods launched from the ship like bullets, carrying their passengers through the planet's turbulent atmosphere. Jake's pod slammed into the desert surface with bone-jarring impact, its protective systems barely managing to keep him conscious. He emerged into a hellscape of shifting dunes and brutal heat that would have killed an unprotected human in minutes. Environmental suits' cooling systems whined under the strain, but Jake's body had already begun adapting. His ancestors had evolved to survive in Earth's varied climates, and that genetic heritage served him well now. While other competitors struggled with the extreme conditions, Jake felt merely uncomfortable. Tom's voice crackled through the cum. System: Thane here. Touchdown approximately 2 clicks northeast of your position. This heat is manageable, but the dust storms are going to be problematic. "Aria reporting," came Amy's transmission. "I can see the Citadel from my position. It's roughly 15 kilometers due west, but there's a massive ravine system between us and the target." Jake checked his scanner and noted the positions of other competitors. Several teams were already struggling with the environment. He could see distress beacons activating as participants succumbed to heat exhaustion or equipment failure. The humans, however, were adapting with remarkable speed. The first major challenge came 6 hours into the trial. Jake encountered a pack of Kelleran sand hunters, crystalline creatures that could sense movement through vibrations in the dunes. Most species would have either fled or engaged in direct combat, but Jake did something else entirely. He became perfectly still. For 23 minutes, he remained motionless as the creatures searched around him. His breathing slowed to barely perceptible levels, his heart rate dropped, and his body temperature regulated itself to match the ambient environment. The sand hunters, confused by his lack of movement and thermal signature, eventually moved on. This was humanity's secret weapon, not superior technology or overwhelming physical strength, but the ability to adapt and endure in ways that other species couldn't comprehend. While aliens relied on equipment and environmental modifications, humans could simply change their behavior and physiology to match the challenge. Tom demonstrated this principle in spectacular fashion when he encountered a Coven team trapped in a collapsed cave system. Instead of continuing toward his objective, he spent 4 hours digging them out with improvised tools. The Coven warriors were amazed by his persistence and endurance, but Tom was simply doing what humans did, helping others survive against impossible odds. Amy's approach was different, but equally effective. When her route was blocked by a massive dust storm that had claimed several competitors, she didn't try to go around it. Instead, she studied the storm's patterns for 3 hours, then dove directly into its heart, using the chaos to mask her movement and emerging on the other side. While other teams waited for it to pass, the 3 humans reached the Crimson Citadel within 48 hours, well ahead of most competitors. But their success had not gone unnoticed. As they retrieved their beacon, Jake spotted surveillance drones that weren't part of the official tournament coverage. "We've got watchers," he whispered to his team. "Someone's paying special attention." To the Kepler team, Amy nodded grimly. "Our performance has been too good. We're standing out." But it was too late to dial back their success. The second challenge was already beginning, and their reputation as formidable competitors was spreading throughout the tournament community. Species that had initially dismissed the unknown Kepler refugees were now studying them with intense interest. As their transport prepared for departure to Frostheim, Jake overheard a conversation between 2 Alteran strategists. "The Kepler team moves like no species we've encountered. Their endurance is beyond normal parameters, and their tactical thinking is unusual." Jake smiled grimly. They had successfully infiltrated the tournament, but the real test was just beginning. Frostheim would push human endurance to its absolute limits, and maintaining their cover while excelling in the challenges would require every trick they'd learned in their years of military service. Frostheim's surface was a nightmare of perpetual winter, where temperatures plummeted to -60 degrees and wind-driven snow could blind a warrior in seconds. Jake's environmental suit struggled against the cold, its heating elements working overtime to maintain survivable conditions. Around him, other competitors had already begun dropping out, their equipment failing, or their physiologies simply unable to cope with the extreme environment. The challenge was deceptively simple: survive for 7 days while hunting the elusive Frostheim stalkers, massive predators whose fur could be crafted into thermal regulators worth a fortune on the galactic market. Each team needed to bring back at least 1 pelt to advance to the next round. What made it truly deadly was that the stalkers were pack hunters with natural camouflage, razor-sharp claws, and an instinct for exploiting any weakness in their prey. They had evolved on this world for millions of years, and they considered anything warm-blooded to be food. Jake's team had established a base camp in the ruins of an ancient structure, using their engineering skills to create wind barriers and heat traps that would have impressed even veteran survivalists. But they weren't alone in their struggle. 3 days into the challenge, they encountered the first sign that their cover might be blown. "Sir," Amy whispered, pointing through the swirling snow. 12 o'clock, 200 meters. That's not tournament surveillance. Jake peered through his scope and confirmed her observation. A group of figures in advanced stealth gear were observing their camp from concealed positions. These weren't official tournament monitors. They were something else entirely. Galactic Council security, Tom muttered, recognizing the equipment configuration. They're watching us specifically. The implications were terrifying. If the Council had discovered their true identities, this mission had just become about survival, rather than competition. But Jake had another concern. Their performance in the previous challenge had been too dominant, too perfect. They needed to be more careful about showcasing human capabilities. That resolve lasted exactly 6 hours, until the stalkers found them. The attack came at dawn, when the humans were rotating watch duties. Amy spotted the first creature, a massive, white-furred predator that seemed to materialize from the snow itself. Her warning cry barely preceded the arrival of 5 more stalkers, their pack-hunting instincts driving them to surround the camp. Most species would have panicked. The Coven warriors typically relied on their armor and brute strength, while the Alterans preferred tactical withdrawal to favorable positions. But humans had a different approach to being hunted, that they became the hunters. Jake's transformation was immediate and terrifying. His body language shifted from defensive to predatory, his eyes tracking movement patterns with deadly precision. He didn't retreat from the stalkers, he studied them, learning their attack patterns and identifying weaknesses in their coordination. Tom left flank, Amy, high ground. We're going to funnel them into the kill zone, he ordered with calm efficiency. Next 20 minutes showcased everything that made humans unique in the galaxy. While other species might have superior technology or physical capabilities, humans had something else, the ability to think like their prey, to understand predator psychology, and to turn any environment into a battlefield. Tom used improvised explosives to create an avalanche that separated 2 stalkers from their pack. Amy found elevated positions and used precision fire to wound rather than kill, driving the creatures toward predetermined positions. Jake moved through the chaos like a ghost, appearing and disappearing in the snow while coordinating the team's movements. When the battle ended, they had killed 4 stalkers and wounded 2 others so badly that they retreated. But their victory had been witnessed by more than just the hidden observers. By the 7 Sons, breathed a Corvan warrior who had been tracking the same pack. How did you do that? Your species isn't listed in the combat effectiveness database. Jake felt ice in his veins that had nothing to do with the planetary temperature. We're survivors, he said simply. The Kepler colony taught us to adapt or die, but the damage was done. Word of their victory spread through the tournament community with viral speed. The mysterious Kepler team had done something unprecedented. They had turned a defensive, survival situation into an offensive hunting operation. Other competitors began studying them with intense interest, and the hidden observers increased their surveillance. The situation escalated on the 5th day, when they encountered a team of Alteran strategists who had been caught in a blizzard. The aliens were skilled and intelligent, but their equipment had failed and they were facing death from exposure. Most competitors would have continued past them. The tournament rules didn't require assistance to other teams. Humans, however, had a different approach to survival. Without hesitation, Jake's team diverted from their planned route to rescue the Alterans. They shared their shelter, their heat sources, and their food. Tom spent 12 hours repairing the aliens' equipment, while Amy provided medical treatment for frostbite injuries. Jake coordinated the rescue with the same intensity he would have applied to saving his own species. The Alteran team leader, a mathematician named Quell, was bewildered by this behavior. Why, he asked, we are competitors. Our failure would improve your standing in the tournament. Jake looked at him with genuine confusion. Because you needed help. It was such a fundamentally human response that it took Quell several minutes to process it. In his species culture, survival was about individual excellence and calculated risk. The concept of helping competitors at personal cost was nearly incomprehensible, but their act of compassion had consequences. The rescued Alterans began spreading stories about the Kepler team's unusual capabilities and philosophy. Combined with their combat performance and their seemingly impossible endurance, a picture was emerging that made certain observers very nervous. On the final day of the Frostheim Challenge, As they prepared for transport to the Third World, Jake received an encrypted message on his personal communicator. The text was simple but chilling. "We know who you are. Withdraw now or face consequences." Jake deleted the message and looked at his team. Amy and Tom were preparing their gear with the same professional efficiency they'd shown in dozens of military operations. They were committed to seeing this through, regardless of the risks. "Sir?" Amy asked, noticing his expression. "New developments?" Jake smiled grimly. "Just the galaxy reminding us that humans aren't supposed to be here." Tom checked his weapon systems. "Good thing we never listened to what we're supposed to do." As their transport lifted off from Frostheim's surface, Jake knew that the real challenge was just beginning. They had proven human capabilities in survival and combat, but now they faced something more dangerous than any predator or environmental hazard. They faced the fear of an entire galaxy. Toxie arrived beneath a sickly green sky, its surface a maze of poisonous swamps, carnivorous vegetation, and atmospheric toxins that could kill most species within minutes of exposure. The final challenge before the championship round was designed to eliminate all but the most exceptional competitors, and Jake's team knew they were walking into a trap. Preliminary scans show 93 separate toxic compounds in the atmosphere. Dr. Park reported through their encrypted communication channel. The plant life has evolved to actively hunt warm-blooded creatures, and the water table contains acids that will dissolve standard protective gear. Jake adjusted his environmental suit and surveyed the nightmare landscape. Fewer than 60 competitors remained from the original 800, and the tension was palpable. But what concerned him most wasn't the environment, it was the increasing scrutiny from tournament officials and the mysterious observers who had been tracking them since Frostheim. "Kane," came a voice behind him. He turned to see Quell, the Alterran they had rescued, approaching with his team. "I wanted to thank you again for your assistance on the ice world." "No need for thanks," Jake replied, maintaining his cover identity. "Anyone would have done the same." Quell's expression was strange. "No, Kane, they wouldn't have. I've been studying your team's performance data, and I've reached some interesting conclusions about your species' capabilities." Jake felt warning bells in his mind. "What do you mean?" "Your endurance parameters exceed known biological limits for Kepler colony refugees. Your tactical thinking demonstrates patterns consistent with advanced military training. And your psychological profile suggests a species that has evolved under extreme survival pressure." Quell paused, his mathematical mind processing data. "I believe you're not who you claim to be." Before Jake could respond, the tournament announcer's voice boomed across the staging area. "Final challenge begins in 1 hour. Objective: reach the toxic crown at the center of the venomous maze. Warning: this challenge has a 70% mortality rate. Competitors who wish to withdraw may do so now without penalty." Jake watched as nearly 20 competitors immediately stepped forward to withdraw. They were the smart ones. Toxia was designed to kill, and the venomous maze was a death trap that had claimed champions from previous tournaments. "We need to talk," Quell said quietly, "but not here. Too many ears." The deployment into the maze was chaos. Jake's team found themselves separated from other competitors by walls of writhing, carnivorous vines that seemed to actively reshape the maze's configuration. The path to the toxic crown was constantly changing, and the environment itself was trying to kill them. Amy's voice crackled through their comm system. "I've got pursuit. 3 contacts, unknown species, but they're tracking us specifically." Jake processed this information while ducking under a spray of acidic sap from an overhead branch. "Council security? Negative. These are bounty hunters. Professional-grade equipment and tactics." The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Not only were they facing the deadliest challenge in the tournament, but they were also being hunted by professionals who clearly knew their true identities. The mission had shifted from infiltration to survival. Tom's voice joined the channel. "Sir, I've reached the maze center. You need to see this." Jake fought his way through the toxic vegetation, his suit's filtration systems working overtime to keep him alive. When he reached the center, he found Tom standing before the toxic crown, a crystalline structure that pulsed with internal light. But that wasn't what had captured his attention. Surrounding the crown were the bodies of competitors from previous tournaments. Their environmental suits corroded, and their remains serving as fertilizer for the carnivorous plants. The venomous maze wasn't just a challenge, it was a feeding ground. "This is genocide," Tom whispered. "They're deliberately killing the best warriors from across the galaxy." Jake's mind raced as pieces of a larger puzzle fell into place. The tournament wasn't about honor or proving species' worth, it was about elimination. Someone was using the competition to systematically reduce the military capabilities of potential threats. "The Council," he breathed. "They're not just excluding us from the tournament. They're using it to eliminate competition." Amy's voice crackled through the cum. "Sir, we've got bigger problems. The bounty hunters have found us, and they're not alone." Jake turned to see a squad of heavily armed figures emerging from the maze walls. Their leader removed his helmet, revealing the insectoid features of Tournament Director Vex. "Humans," Vex said, his compound eyes gleaming with malevolent satisfaction. "You thought you could deceive us, but we have been watching your species since first contact. Your performance in the preliminary trials revealed too much." "What do you want?" Jake demanded. "To eliminate a threat before it can mature," Vex replied. "Your species possesses capabilities that could destabilize galactic order. The tournament has always been about more than competition, it's about maintaining the balance of power." The battle that followed was unlike anything in tournament history. Jake's team fought with the desperation of humans facing extinction, using every trick they'd learned in military service. They turned the maze's own traps against their attackers, used the toxic environment as a weapon, and demonstrated the adaptability that had made them too dangerous to ignore. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, salvation came from an unexpected source. "This is Quell," a transmission on emergency frequencies. "All competitors converge on the maze center. The tournament officials are attempting to murder participants." The revelation sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Within hours, rescue ships from multiple species arrived at Toxia, and the truth about the tournament's real purpose began to emerge. The Galactic Council had been using the competition to eliminate potential threats to their hegemony and humanity's exclusion had been part of a larger pattern of suppression. Jake's team was evacuated along with the other survivors, but their mission had achieved something far greater than they'd intended. By proving human capabilities under extreme pressure, they had forced the galaxy to confront its own fears and prejudices. 6 months later, Jake stood before the reformed Galactic Council as humanity's official representative. The tournament had been restructured as a true competition rather than a mechanism for elimination, and humans had been not only invited to participate, but welcomed as equals. The galaxy spent so much time fearing what humans might become. Jake said in his address to the Council that it forgot to appreciate what we already were: survivors, protectors, and allies who would rather die than abandon those in need. The applause that followed was genuine, not the polite acknowledgement of a lesser species, but the recognition of equals. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest or intimidation, but by demonstrating the qualities that made them truly special. As Jake looked out at the assembled representatives of hundreds of worlds, he smiled. The galaxy had tried to bar humanity from its survival game, only to discover that humans had been playing by different rules, all along rules that valued cooperation over competition, survival over domination, and hope over fear. The tournament would continue, but now it would serve its original purpose, bringing the galaxy's finest together to celebrate the diversity and strength that made each species unique. And at the center of it all, humans would compete not as conquerors, but as the explorers and protectors they had always been. The galaxy's survival game had found its true champions, and they wore the face of humanity.